I call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. We will now go into section 1. Section 2 roll call.
With 16 members present, 9 make simple majority, 11 is 2/3.
Thank you. We will now we will now swear in Associate Justice. So Ryan Knuckles, please come up. Okay, raise your right hand and say, "I do" at the end of this statement. Do you hereby swear that you will faithfully serve the students of Wichita State University, act in accordance with the Constitution and bylaws of the student body, and fulfill all the duties and responsibilities required of the office of the Associate Justice, and to the best of your ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the student body of Wichita State University?
I do.
Congratulations. We will now go into section 3, introductions and reports, and we'll go to 3.1.
Message from the President, authorizing an expenditure of $1,000 from the President's Sponsorship Fund to sponsor the 2025 MPHC Shock the Yard Step Show. Whereas on April 8th, President Howard signed Executive Order 67-17, authorizing expenditure from the President's Sponsorship Fund to support the 2025 MPHC Shock the Yard Step Show. And whereas the Wichita State Student Government Association is committed to supporting initiatives of students at Wichita State University in any way possible, SJ looks forward to sponsoring the 2025 MPHC Shock the Yard Step Show and expresses its gratitude and support for the National Panhellenic Council for its effort to promote diversity, inclusion, and unity on our campus. Now, therefore, pursuant to the authority vested in me as president of the association by the Constitution and laws of the Wichita State University Student Government Association, I hereby direct and order the following. Authorize the expenditure of $1,000 from the President's Sponsorship Fund to sponsor the 2025 MPHC Shock the Yard Step Show. This order shall be filed with the association's office, added to the record, and shall become effective upon filing and remaining in force until rescinded by the President or following other procedures. This order shall become executive law and special order to remain beyond the session.
Thank you. We will now go into 3.2, report from the executive branch. So good evening, everyone. I hope your week is going well. You might notice a bit of a change in pace of who's up here. So today I will be chairing the meeting in my role as the president of the Senate, since Speaker Owens and several other of our senators are in New York for Model UN. Additionally, Clerk Carter is sick today, so Advisor Fonseca will serve as our clerk today. For the updates that I have for you all, pretty short update today. Today, President Howard and I went to Pittsburgh State University for our K-Board visit for our second to last Student Advisory Council meeting. During our SAC meeting, we discussed elections throughout our SGAs, tuition, and student fee increases. We also did introductions for all of our new SGA presidents that were present at that meeting. Additionally, today, President Howard, Senator Ping, and I met with Dean Hand to discuss how we can boost student engagement within the college. Last Friday, President Howard and I met with the honor scene, Dean Ember, to also discuss how we can boost engagement for honor students. For RSO visits, since our last Senate meeting, we visited 2 RSOs. We visited Shocker Racing Formula on Friday, and we also visited the Psychology Graduate Student Association also on Monday. We have a couple more RSO visits scheduled before our session ends, so please check the Excel sheet if you're interested in joining those meetings. For our Chief of Staff, Westbrook, he is finishing all the meeting minutes for Student Fees and Finance Commission before our session ends. For our Director of Engagement and Leadership, Fritz, this Friday, the Freshman Leadership Council will have their final event from 11 o'clock to 2 p.m. in the Shocker Hall courtyard. There will be free BOMA, yard games, and more, so I highly encourage you all to show up, support our freshmen. For our Director of Student Organizations, Chohan, as I mentioned, we visited several student organizations. Additionally, we scheduled a couple more RSO visits, and we'll have one last Student Organizations Council meeting before the session ends. We're providing the framework for end of year social for the next administration, but also we are doing some last minute outreach to student organizations. So if you're a part of a student organization, you may have noticed that we sent an email out to you asking if it's possible to meet with your executive board or visit one of your general meetings. So we'll still love to set up either meetings next session for the incoming administration and for senators, or visit them before next Wednesday. For our undergraduate advocate Wassinger, so last week we had a disability Pride Task Force where we discussed a couple the student bill of rights and a couple other issues that students found relevant. But that's pretty much all I have to report for today. Everyone's wrapping up their transitions and preparing for whoever's coming next into the role. And also, welcome to all of those in our gallery, including all those that are speaking public forum, and our incoming senators. So we're so happy to have you here, but I will stand for any questions that anyone may have. Okay, seeing none, we'll now go into 3.3, report from the Speaker of the Senate.
I have Victoria's report, so I'm just going to read it for you guys. Hi, everyone. I'm writing to you from New York. I hope you are all well and having a good week so far. This past Thursday, the Accessibility and Diversity and Disability Pride Task Force met and discussed the Student Bill of Rights changes and next steps as it pertains to the Faculty Senate. They discussed ADHD, Autism, and Learning Disability Support Fund to inform members of the progress made and the potential changes to the process in partnership with the Psychology Department. This initiative has ultimately been pushed to be completed in the 68th session. There'll be ongoing conversation throughout the rest of the session and throughout the beginning of the 68th session to complete this initiative in time for the upcoming fall semester. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude and congratulations to Senator Izzard for the hard work they have funneled into this initiative. Additionally, the RSC Board of Directors discussing renovations to the CAC Theater. We updated the group on the different action plans proposed to meet ADA guidelines. Finally, we discussed the recent testing policy changes with OSAT Director Isabel Medina Kaiser, and I invited her to discuss these changes, and we'll give you all a chance to ask any questions about the new process during public forum. Athletics will be giving their annual updates today in public forum, so take the time to ask any questions you might have. Last week, President Howard and I formally accepted the results of the election, which marks the transition from the 67th session into the 68th session. Congratulations to each of our senators that will fill this room for the 68th session. I extend my full support to each of you and will be available to answer any questions or chat as you transition into these roles. April 23rd is the last meeting of the 67th session. There'll be no committee meetings, so we'll begin with food and appetizers at 5:30 before gaveling into our formal session at 6:30. I expect you all to be present and ready to begin the formal session at 6:20, whether you opt to eat food or not. And that is the end of her report.
Does anyone have any questions that Advisor Fonseca may try to answer? Awesome. We'll now go into, we'll skip 3.4 since Government Oversight Chairperson is not here today, and go to 3.5, report from Academic Affairs. Chairperson Grahena.
No report.
Thank you. We'll now go into 3.6, report from Diversity and Power Inclusion. Chairperson Haynes.
Yes, so we met in committee today, and essentially we made some edits and tweaks to the diversity training resolution. That's pretty much everything from me.
Does anyone have any questions for Chairperson Haynes? Seeing none, we'll go into 3.8, report from the Central Office. Advisor Fonseca.
Yeah, the only thing I want to reiterate, some information from last week as a reminder. On Friday, the Student Government's office will close for the rest of the session, and then we'll reopen the following week when the new administration moves in. They still will have access to their email, so if you do need anything from any of the cabinet or Senate leadership, you can still email them. Those emails will turn off on Thursday next week as we transition for the next session as well. And that's all I got.
Does anyone have any questions for Advisor Fonseca? Seeing none, we'll now go into section 4, public forum and presentations. Public forum provides a chance for individuals to have the privilege of speaking before the Senate. This is a time for the association to listen to what the community has to say, and to that we offer our undivided respect and attention. I would like to remind everyone that although we allow the speakers the privilege to use the platform, the opinion of the speakers do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the association or the university. We'll go to 4.2 first with OSAT.
Ah, that's why. Okay. Okay, guys, just know that I have an allergy kicking up, and so if I start coughing or sneezing or lose my voice, please bear with me. I also brought my coffee so I could be speedy. Anyway, I just wanted to address a few things before we opened it up for questions, just so that you get a bit of an idea of what was all happening as far as the testing policies. So last academic year, OSAT proctored over 6,000 tests. Just so you know that that is the number that we're doing right now. According to Conduct, in 23-24 academic year, 8 reports from our office, about 4% of the reports were from OSAT. 24-25, we had 19 reports. Which again is about roughly 12% of the reports that were from OSAT. So that was definitely an increase in students, again, dealing with test integrity and cheating. So with that increase, we meant that we were going to review our testing policies. Also, OSAT is being recertified through the NCTA, which is the National College Testing Association. And they have asked for the most up-to-date policies ensuring testing integrity. So that's the other reason why we've changed some of our testing policies. I would say 3/4 of the current testing policy was already in effect since 2022. Also, the added requirements were pulled from other testing center policies from either the same size or larger universities. Example, Oklahoma State University, University of Central Florida. I did bring with me, and I'll give that to y'all to distribute. These are just some examples of testing programs that are actually sometimes even more intense as far as testing policy requirements. So I just wanted you to have a copy of that. Also, just so you know that I have reached out to the other universities in Kansas. They are also reviewing their policies because of the increase of students cheating in the testing center. So that's part of the background reason of why we were doing this. What we added was examinees will, when checking in the front desk, must provide OSAT staff with the course prefix, course number, CRN number, test name number, and instructor name to ensure that the examinee is taking the correct test, because we've had students that have come in, they thought that they were taking test 2 and they actually needed to be taking test 3. So we want to make sure that communication is happening and being very clear within that communication. So the student can actually, or examinee can look up their information on Blackboard. I get sometimes you might not remember the name of the professor. That happens, but that kind of causes problems for us, and especially if you're not taking the right exam. So again, we're just trying to increase the communication. Examinees must present proper physical valid ID before entering the testing room. The physical IDs must be kept on the examinee's table while they're taking the test so that we can see it via the camera, or if we needed to check ID to make sure that the student is the correct person, we need to be doing that. Examinees, and I know this one is the one that's probably people are concerned with, examinees will raise slacks or pants or long skirt just above the ankle and pull up sleeves if long sleeves are worn prior to the entry of the testing room. What we've been seeing is students are putting phones in their socks. We've had a student that actually put the phone at the bottom of their shoe. Now, we're not going to ask you to take your shoes off. No, we're not TSA, and we're not going to do that. But we would like to be able to see that you're not carrying anything in. If it's a student that has modesty issues, like maybe it's a religious thing, we can, check that area in a closed room with a female checking that area. So we're trying to make sure that we are respecting everybody's issues. So that one might be an issue that comes up. Examinees will empty and turn out all pockets and clothing. Again, what we're having is students bringing in little pieces of paper in their pockets, socks, and other locations. Also, examinees that leave the test room to go to the bathroom, and just know that there are other universities out there that won't even let you go to the bathroom. Guess what? We have students with accommodations that need medical reasons for going to the bathroom, and I also understand students can feel anxiety and need to go to the bathroom. So you can still go to the bathroom, that's not going to be an issue, but what we've been seeing is students are going into the bathrooms and looking at their phone or bringing the phone back in after they've left the testing room. Or they're memorizing stuff that they're leaving in the bathroom and then come back in and okay? Like I said, these are areas that are, technology is being used to cheat on tests. We're just trying to keep up with what's the technology and making sure that test integrity is upheld. And so basically, if the student has to go to the bathroom, they have to check themselves out at the front desk, check themselves back in, but we're going to check again to make sure that they didn't bring in stuff from the bathroom. Yes, it does take some time, and it takes our staff some time to be able to check that. If the examinee is late for a testing appointment, they can either opt out, sign a waiver of time, to reschedule the test for another date, especially if we have students that need extra time and they set their test for 3 o'clock and didn't show up until 3:15 or 3:30. So we're just, again, trying to take care of every issue that's been coming through. And the other thing is just know, because testing is now in the same office instead of being, ODS was on the second floor of Grace Wilkie and testing was on the other one, I'm able now to really follow through and see what was going on within testing and to make sure that testing is going to be doing it. All I can say is cheating on tests, it's not worth it. You're going to, not just the fact that your professor could either drop you out of the class, get an F, what it does to your soul. Okay? I'm open for questions. Yes?
Does anyone have any questions? Sarah Ping?
Hi. So when a student gets caught cheating at OSAT, can you kind of walk us through what happens to said student, like the process of it?
Basically, we will give them a sheet saying that this is the process. The sheet is from Code of Conduct, so they know what will be the next steps. We have no control over those next steps.
Are there any other questions? Senator Lewis?
Instead of adjusting clothing rules, have you considered using a metal detector?
We do have a metal detector that we've been using since 2022, but I don't think it was being used all the time. And now that we're in the same area, I'm watching that. What we might be looking at is a stand-up type of metal detector. So one of the issues is staffing. It takes a lot of staff to be able to do this, and we don't have all the staff. So we're thinking about purchasing a walk-through one that just has a light that goes off, as, again, a deterrent for people not to do that. People get very creative, and I just wish they were more creative in studies than cheating. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Are there any additional questions? Sarah Island?
If students that are taking tests that have accommodations that potentially need medical devices or need access to that technology to check blood sugars or things like that, what's the protocol there?
Again, if the student is not registered with our office, then they would have to provide documentation of those medical issues to our office so that we can okay not having them to go through a metal detector or knowing, this is what they have. We've even had students that are allowed to bring their cell phone in, but we attach it to the door. So that way, in case, I'm diabetic too, okay? We have diabetic ones, and so that phone is needed to be able to check things. So we wiggle on those things as best as we can, but again, trying to keep that test integrity there.
Does anyone else have any more questions? Sarah Siddiqui?
So you said it was tough because you guys were on two different floors in Grace Wilkie, but now that you guys are in the Shocker Success Center, is it easier? Are you guys still facing the same issue that you face in Grace Wilkie?
I think that maybe the increase of us catching this, maybe because we have all the staff on one floor. And so because of our staffing issues, everybody has to be trained on how to proctor. So more eyes might have kicked up the numbers.
Are there any additional questions? Sarah Izar?
Hi, so when a student does need to stop to go to the bathroom for medical reasons or any other reasons of that sort, and then they do come back and they have to go through the whole recheck-in part,
Right.
Will their time be stopped, their testing time be stopped, or does that continue?
No, we can stop it because we don't want them to lose their time.
Are there any additional questions? Senator Peng?
So I myself uses the testing center. I absolutely love it, especially with the updated facilities. In the email I have gotten, it says examinees are responsible for supplying materials specified by the instructor, aka blue books, graphing paper, and all that. Does that mean you'll stop supplying scratch pieces of paper? And
No, we'll still give you the scratch because we want that scratch paper to be as long as the professor's okay with you to have that scratch paper. And it's actually better for it to come from us than from somewhere else. There's invisible ink out there. I just watched a video on that.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you. I didn't need my coffee.
Okay. We will now go into 4.1, athletics, with Kevin Saul and Quentin Stoltz. You have the floor.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see you all. We appreciate the opportunity to share an update from athletics, and we want to briefly cover a variety of topics in this presentation, provide the opportunity for you all to ask questions as well, but a lot of very positive things to report in terms of different performance levels in athletics and our student-athlete experiences as well. So if we can go to the next slide. Here's an overview of what we're going to be talking about over the next 10 minutes or so. We'll start with athletic performance. Then I want to give you a real quick summary of our quality assurance system that we're using in athletics. I think that's really important, and it'll feed into the other topics that we'll be talking about, which include academic performance, our student-athlete experience assessments. Also want to provide the opportunity for A.D. Saul to visit with you all a little bit about this House versus NCAA settlement that, if you've been following the legal sport news, is something that's really a big topic in college athletics. And then again, have some time for questions and answers at the end of the presentation. So with that having been said, I'll turn the microphone over to Kevin to talk about athletic performance.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to spend some time with you guys tonight. Really appreciate it. So competitively, I'll start with teams that are competing right now. Our women's golf team finished 8th in league today. We had Kate Toma finished 7th overall, had a phenomenal week, which is very, very good. Men's golf will be competing next week at the conference championship. Both our men's and women's tennis teams are drastically improved over last year, which is a positive. Our women's tennis team is a borderline NCAA tournament team, so we're pulling for them in the conference tournament, and I'll talk to you a little bit about the importance of that here at the end of this update. Women's bowling. Incredibly proud of this group. Phenomenal first year, and I want to recognize the young women that transitioned into that program, going from a club sport into an NCAA sponsored sport. There is a tremendous difference in expectations from student athletes, whether it's compliance related, academic obligations, paperwork, all of those things, and they did a phenomenal job. To go in your first NCAA year and to go to the Final Four that they competed in Las Vegas. I will tell you, in 26 years of doing this, some of the most resilient young women and athletes that I've been around. we went to the conference tournament, and to maybe express the difficulty of the conference tournament, 10 teams, all 10 of them nationally ranked in the top 25, 7 of those in the top 10 in the country. And we went to New Orleans. They lost the first match, went down into the consolation bracket, and they proceeded to win 7 straight matches to win the conference championship. So we have a Coach of the Year, both within the league, and Holly was National Coach of the Year in bowling. So just a phenomenal first year for them. 4 All-Americans. Just really, really excited for them. Volleyball won a conference championship in the fall and competed in the NCAA tournament. Our men's basketball team finished 19-15 as compared to a 15-19 year last year, so certainly some positive steps. Our head coach, Paul Mills, has finished his first 2 seasons with 34 wins, and to give you a sense contextually on where that sits, in 118 years of college basketball at Wichita State, Coach Mills sits at 3rd. In win total after 2 seasons of about 25-30 head coaches. So again, we're not throwing a parade for this, but they're positive steps, and it's an indication of our direction, not necessarily our destination. 10 non-conference wins was our most in 5 years, and it was our first postseason in 4 years, so certainly positive there. Track and field, really excited for the next few weeks for our track and field programs. Both the men and the women are projected to finish well in league. They'll be competing down in Charlotte towards the middle of May, and our men are projected in the top 2, so we will be competing for a championship there. We have multiple individuals that will likely go to NCAA regionals and then the terminal final of the NCAA tournament as well. That's important because, as you all know, you've heard me talk about NCAA Learfield Directors Cup points. So we're competitive people in athletics, obviously, and when you look at the overall success of athletics departments across the country, there's 365 of those. Last year, we scored 37 Directors Cup points as an athletics program, and we finished 276 out of 365 institutions, okay? This year, with the points that are already scored, we're at 108 points, and if you look at what 108 would have positioned us last year, it vaults us ahead about 100 places. So with an opportunity for track to get some athletes into postseason play, for potentially our spring sports, women's tennis, softball, potentially baseball, if we can turn the corner to get in the NCAA tournament, we can be a top 100 program, which is a huge goal for us. So really excited about that. That's really a recap of our NCAA-sponsored sports. I'd be remiss if we didn't also recognize our cheerleading team, who competes in the National Cheerleading Association. Just this last weekend, won the national championship for the division that they compete in, so we're super excited and appreciative for them as well. So that's the athletic update.
Thank you, Kevin. Moving ahead to the next slide, want to make just give you an overview in terms of our quality assurance system. Can you jump back one slide? There you go. Yeah, great. Certainly want to have great athletic success. Also want to ensure that our student athletes are performing well academically and having terrific experiences here in every facet of their experiences as WSU students. We have, without getting too detailed, put in a pretty comprehensive quality assurance system that secures data from a variety of sources, including regular program surveys of all of our student athletes, exit interviews with those departing either via the transfer portal or graduation because they've completed their eligibility, the ongoing reports that we receive through our real-time reporting system, and we pull all of that together. We do have an athletics quality assurance committee that at the end of the year reviews all of those data, both at the aggregate level and at the program levels. And as we do just with any other area of the university, we assess our overall quality, we identify areas for continuous improvement, and then related action items. So for example, for this year, one of the things that we know that we needed to do was we were getting limited data from our students departing via the transfer portal. And so we've made some changes in terms of survey questions and exit interview procedures so that we're getting a more robust picture about what are some of the factors that are involved in that. So this system has served us well for a couple of years. It continues on a regular basis. We report this information to President Muma and to other key stakeholders within the university, and that transparency, that accountability is a part of this process as well. Kevin, I'll turn it over to you for academic performance.
So obviously, we are competitive folks, and we're really excited about the competitive results and where we're headed there. Some really positive momentum. I do want to stop for a moment and share with you some academic great news for our student athletes. They work incredibly hard in the classroom. We set some very bold goals when we arrived in 22 about departmental GPAs. At that point in time, we had been, 31, 32 consecutive semesters of a department-wide GPA of 3.0 or better. And we've been doing that for a long time, but we wanted to set some more strategic goals. So we said, hey, let's, in the next 10 semesters, so 5 years, we want 5 out of those 10 to be at a 3.3 and just 1 at a 3.4. We had never achieved a 3.4 in the history of our program. And I'm elated to stand here and report to you all that we have achieved our 39th consecutive semester of a 3.0 GPA. We've had 3 3.4s since we set that goal in 22. Really, really excited when we're doing things that haven't been done before. And the graphic that you see up there on the screen was a high water mark for us for our program. We had a 3.53 as a full athletics department GPA last fall semester. Our student athletes work incredibly hard. It's a priority for our coaches. Our graduate success rates, which we'll touch on here in a minute, our APR, our Fed grad rates are consistently very high in our league. In often cases, they're consistently higher than the general student population. So just really, really excited about our academic performance. Next slide. So just a continuation of this, when you look at our fall grades on that 3.53, we had 86% of all grades were at a 3.0 or better, all GPAs. We had 53 student athletes with a 4.0. That's 20% of our student athlete population, so 1 out of every 5 of our student athletes are at a 4.0. 170 on the Dean's List represents 63% of our student athletes, and 219 on the Shocker Scholars list represents 81% of our student athletes. Next slide. So academic progress rate is a rate that measures both eligibility and retention for our student athletes, and I'm happy to report that we had one program that was honored for earning multi-year academic progress rate in the top 10% in the country, and that was volleyball. We had 7 programs that earned a perfect score of 1,000, men's cross country, men's golf, men's tennis, men's track and field, softball, women's tennis, and volleyball. We sustained our qualification for NCAA academic enhancement funds, which there's basically 3 prongs, and you've got to satisfy one of those prongs. They are APR, GSR, and then a Fed rate of at least 13% better than your general student population. We were able to achieve that, which is significant funds that we pour back into academic support for our student athletes. So just incredibly proud of our young people in terms of what they're doing, your peers. Both fulfilling obligations as an athlete, but most importantly as a student.
Go to the next slide, please. So gave you an overview of our quality assurance system, told you we took a look at data from a variety of sources, including program surveys that are administered 2 times a year to all of our student athletes. If you will hang with me while I get a little granular on some data here, have some really interesting overall findings to share with you. So this is from our fall program survey, and you see we had 221 responses out of 270 student athletes, so vast majority responded to this. Their overall experience on a 0 to 5 scale is a 4.3. That's on par with the national average. The great part about the survey tool that we use is that we're not only able to secure data in terms of how our own student athletes are experiencing different facets of their WSU experience, but we're able to benchmark those scores against 100 other NCAA Division I programs, about half of which are in Power 4 conferences. So the SEC, the Big Ten, the highest levels in terms of resourced athletic programs. So when you look over on the right side of this slide and you see a net promoter score, what the survey tool is doing is for each respondent, they are, based on the scope of the responses, they are assigning an overall satisfaction index score on a scale of 1 to 10. That Net Promoter Score is taking the group that's in the 9 to 10 range. These are your biggest fans. They're throwing out the folks that are at the 7 or 8 range, and that's okay. But that's a B or a C. That's not bad. But then they're comparing it to the folks that are at a 6 and below. We were 31 points to the good on that, and that's a good score, particularly when you see, and it's kind of small type, that 20 above. It's 20 points above our national benchmark in terms of a national promoter score for our student athletes. So that's a really great indicator of the overall experiences that they have, and you see the scores on the 1 to 5 scale in terms of academic support, athletic department, overall experience. If we can go to the next slide, please. You've got some data here in terms of experiences with our head coaches and our assistant coaches. Again, we're calculating those same net promoter scores, and they are very strong. 42 for our head coaches. That's 35 points above the national average. Assistant coaches at 55, that's 26 above the national average. So you really see the quality of the job that our coaches are doing in providing leadership for our student athletes and providing great experiences for those student athletes. All right, I think we can go to the next slide. Here's a few other indicators from our fall 2024 program survey. Overall, we got 44 measures of student athlete experience. We are at or above the national benchmark on 44, or 40 of those 44. And not surprisingly, given those net promoter scores, you're seeing that for every item that relates to an assistant coach or a head coach, we are at or above the national benchmark on that. So really positive results from our program surveys. Next slide.
I think it is, before we get to the House settlement, I think it's important to note that on these surveys, as we're going through the granular data, if we see by sport or overall that maybe we might be above the national average in a particular area, but if we see a dip in a specific area, then in our exit interviews or our follow-up interviews with our student athletes, we'll talk about that or we'll ask about that. And there are even some cases where we do a postseason. Every year, all of our head coaches go through a postseason evaluation. And so if we're taking a dip in a specific program, then we'll address that with the head coach and we'll problem solve and work our way through that. So I think that's really important. This last slide, I think I've been in front of you talking about House settlement for probably the last year or so, the last time I was here. And the red letter date that was circled on everybody's calendar was April 7th. You may recall that the House settlement basically cleared the way for to level set all the litigation that's going on in the country. It clears the way for retroactive NIL earnings for student athletes over the last 10 years. Roster maximums, it sets roster cap maximums and allows you to scholarship at a level within those maximums. And then you've got the rev share component. So the judge did not rule as expected from the bench on April 7th. She requested that the attorneys bring back some clarification on a couple of different areas about membership in the class for incoming student athletes, and then also grandfathering roster limits. And so those briefs were submitted Monday of this week, and we anticipate that there will be a ruling via brief probably here in the next 7 days. So really important. This changes the dynamic for athletics across the country. It does become a much more competitive and financially a little bit stronger responsibility for us to maintain our competitiveness in terms of recruiting and retaining student athletes. So a lot of changes there. I can tell you that we've found a right size solution and pathway for Wichita State there that will keep our programs competitive. And the last piece I will tell you is that where we're able to make investments in our sport portfolio, we will have a competitive advantage over our peers, particularly in our league, because most of our peers in our league are pouring dollars into their football programs, particularly on the revenue share side. So as we're able to do different things in the basketballs, the baseballs, the softballs, the volleyballs, others, we're going to be able to do it preferably and hopefully at a level that's a little bit different than our peers, which will set us up really nicely competitively.
Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? Sarah Murphy.
So in the American, where would you say that we fall when it comes to competitiveness in terms of like NIL, like the revenue sharing that's going to be introduced? of the members in our conference, where would we fall on that, by your estimation,
Yeah,
if you can?
it's a tough question to answer because there's no transparency in that process. And quite frankly, if you're playing cards, the last thing you're going to do is show your hand, right? Because if you show your hand, then you know what you got to beat. And so there's elements of that we're hesitant. I hope you all know from us, transparent, we want to be communicative and all those things, but there are some competitive elements we got to be careful with. I can tell you in general, we will be positioned very competitively in the American Athletic Conference. When you look at a sport like men's basketball, we will likely be in the top third in terms of what we're able to do. Our women's basketball program will be above average. We do have some data that we've received that sits in kind of a third-party server from ADs and CFOs in our league. And so we have a decent idea of what each sport has done in FY24, 25, and 26. And so we're able to benchmark and find a right-size approach for us. And I would just say in general, we'll be highly competitive in our league.
Any additional questions? Senator Lewis?
In which of your goals does the student athletics department have the greatest room to improve?
Well, I think if you look at this is a great question, thank you for asking that. If you look at our strategic objectives in the Shocker way, we really talk about three components that drive what we do: our core values, our student athlete development, and our competitive excellence. And so we track things like community service. We track, obviously, the academic piece. We track the athletic piece and how competitive we are within our league in relation to the resources that we're providing to align those resources to expectations. So I would tell you, I think there's always room for improvement, right? We can always get better. I think we are performing incredibly well in the community. The original goal was 1,000 hours of community service with our student athletes. In the first year, they hit 1,200. I think the last 2 years we'll be at 1,500 or more. You have seen the results academically, and I think those speak for themselves. I think the most difficult pathway to traverse is the competitive component, particularly in this landscape with transfer portal and rev share and NIL and all those pieces. That being said, I think that the success of any organization can be evaluated based on the definition of the destination, right? So we've defined the competitive destination as we want to win 15 conference championships in 5 years. I think we're at 6 right now. We've defined competitively that we want to be in the top 100 of the National Directors Cup. And so going from 267 to, if 108 point stands right now, puts us at about 150, and we've advanced 75 to 100 rankings in that area. That's certainly improvement. Is that where we want to is that the destination? No, but it speaks to direction. So in short, I think your point is the most difficult one to progress in very quickly is the competitive side, but I think our direction certainly speaks to a positive forward direction to get to our destination.
Are there any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you all.
Are there any other individuals that wish to speak in public forum? You have the floor.
Hi everyone, so today I'm coming from SEC to be talking about our event that we will be having tomorrow, or tomorrow night, called Potato Palooza. So, I'm going to ask a question. Do you like competition? Yeah? Do we like big prizes? Okay. What about potatoes? Awesome. So what our Potato Palooza is going to be our potato-themed event that will be happening from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. on the first floor of the RSC. So what will be going on? So we have a potato sack race outside of the RSC. We have potato trivia and bingo to test your blood smarts. And then we also have, not to mention, we have a fully stacked potato bar with fries, chips, baked potatoes. Then we also have a game of hot potato. And for the artsy folks, we have a potato craft where you can design and decorate like a little potato figurine. So I mentioned big prizes, and when I mean big prizes, I mean big. So we have, like, I'm talking about a TV, air fryers, or air fryer, and electric scooters, more. But to be able to win these prizes, you'll have to earn tickets by participating in our events. So the more you win and play, the higher chances you get of winning these prizes. So, but yeah, please come to our event on tomorrow, like I said, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. We would like to see you there, your constituents there. Definitely spread the word.
Will you stand for questions? Okay, does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you. Oh, Senator Lewis.
Will you be giving out raw potatoes?
We will not be giving out raw potatoes, unfortunately. So, any more questions?
Any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you.
All right.
Are there any other individuals that wish to speak in public forum? You have the floor.
Yes, it's me again. My name is Joseph Robertson. I used to be a senator, an engineering senator at the beginning of this session. And I wanted to speak today partly in that capacity as a former senator, someone that has experience going around to clubs, who talk to them, and who also is currently an officer in a club. I wanted to speak today on Bill SB 67-182, which is a proposal to lower the maximum amount of funding that any registered student organization can receive. I believe that it is not just misguided, it will be harmful to the health and future of student life on this campus. When I served in student government, one of the things I spent a lot of time doing was reaching out to clubs, talking to their officers, going to their events, and understanding what they needed to succeed. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, these student organizations are not sitting on piles of cash. They're stretching every dollar they have to host events, travel to competitions, build things, rent venues, buy materials, and feed the dozens, sometimes hundreds of students who engage with them. The organizations here that ask for larger budgets aren't doing it for vanity. They're doing it because their work has real reach, whether it's an engineering team representing us internationally, which I happen to be a part of, or a cultural group performing at a major festival, or artists showing their work worldwide. These groups bring value to their entire campus, and more often than not, they go through weeks of planning, budget writing, and justification just to make sure that those things can happen. Lowering these caps on funding doesn't make that process better. It makes it harder for them to dream big. If this bill passes, the message that you are sending is don't grow, don't try too hard, don't aim for more than we think is manageable. That is the opposite of what a university should be telling its students. That is the opposite of what other fellow students should be telling students. I've seen what student organizations can do when they're trusted and supported. I've also seen how easy it is for good initiatives to get quietly killed by budget constraints. We should be working to support the students who are doing the work, not just putting more limits in their way. Thank you guys for listening, and please be thinking carefully tonight about the kinds of campus that this policy will create.
Will you stand for questions?
I will.
Does anyone have any questions? Sarah Barnes?
If this bill were to pass, how do you anticipate the outlook of organizations? What would you see affecting them? What would happen?
I know from my own experience from the formula team, we already did not receive enough money from appropriations last year to simply fund our travel to our single international or our single competition in Michigan. I can only imagine that that would make life harder for every single person involved. Travel is not cheap on its own, especially when you have to build something or practice things to get there.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any other individuals that wish to speak in public forum? Seeing none, we'll go to section 5, approval of the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, there are 2 items, approval of the March 26 minutes, and then of funding bill for the WSU College Democrats. Are there any objections to the consent agenda? Seeing none, is adopted as such. Advisor Fonseca, do you have an update?
Yeah, there were 2 more senators who walked in after roll call, so there are now 18 members present, 10 is simple majority, and 12 is 2/3.
Thank you. We'll now go into section 6, consideration of pending business. And we'll go to 6.1, act on request to approve SB-67-182, amendments to the association's funding regulations. Since the author answered questions last time, we'll go straight into the deliberation period. Does anyone have any, does anyone wish to speak in debate? Senator Sinette?
I'm just going to bring up, I know that I'm kind of echoing a lot of Senator sentiments that are not able to be here today. Something that I've consistently heard, not only from myself, but from other larger student organizations, is that they think the exception to section, here, I guess I'll give you a number. It's Act 5, Section 8, Line C, subsection I, the $20,000 maximum. Just talking to people about it, a lot are kind of feeling that these larger organizations are going to be stifled, and we're already making an exception. We don't know why we're capping said exception. I'm not going to make any amendments tonight on it before I hear back from some other senators, and if like the sentiment is kind of like there's no need for us to do anything to that, then I'm more than happy to it, but I have been talking to students and we're kind of getting a general idea for it.
Okay, so I have an amendment that I'd like to make. So I move to add Act 7, add a new act, Act 7, chapter that will state Chapter 2, Section 4, subsections 7 and 8 will take effect in the 68th session, which is partisan language. Is there a second? Second by Chairperson Haynes. So the reason why I and it'll be a new act. So Act 7, which states Chapter 2, Section 4, subsections 7 and 8 will take effect in the 68th session. So that language is and it would. It would need to be awesome. So the reason why I made this amendment was to grant an exception to the partisan language because we had a bill on the consent agenda that would give funding to WSU College Democrats. So if this bill passes without this act, that bill will be null and void as it is right now. Does anyone else wish to speak on this amendment? Seeing none, we'll just go into the voting period. Advisor Fonseca.
As a reminder, please turn on your clickers and hit AA, and the voting period is now open. With 16 in favor, 1 against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries.
Are there any other senators that wish to speak in the debate period? Okay, I have another amendment that I would like to make. So I move to amend Act 2, Chapter 2, Section 4, subsection 12, and Act 5, Chapter 5, Section 5, subsection 2, and create a new section J to read clothing not tied to formal event or purpose instead of crossing out the clothing line. And Advisor Fonseca, I emailed that to you if that makes it easier. While Advisor Fonseca is adding that in, do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Mallard. So I'll speak on this a little bit. So the reason why I added this amendment in was just to specify that for events related to clothing, it just had to be related to have a formal purpose or be related to an event for organizations to purchase it for appropriations or organizational funding, just so that people just can't buy clothing for no explicit purpose as an organization. But does anyone else wish to speak on this amendment? Seeing none, we'll now go into the voting period. Just a reminder, we are voting on this amendment, not the bill. Advisor Fonseca.
Voting period is now open. With 17 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in debate? Senator Island?
Would the treasurer be open to a question?
I would allow it.
Would you be able to reiterate the reasoning why the $20,000 cap was introduced in Section 3, Subsection 8, Subsection I?
Treasurer Wong, if you want to speak on that, you may.
Yes, so when we had the funding task force together, it was something that was recommended by them while discussing it because we were kind of discussing what the appropriations process looked like, and they were asking just how much an organization realistically gets from Finance Commission, and I kind of ballparked it around $20,000 that an organization typically does not receive over that amount, and so they just decided to add that language in formally.
Does anyone else wish to speak in debate? Senator Barnes?
I'd like to make an amendment. I'd like to amend Act 5, Section 3, line 8C, subpoint I, and I'd like to strike the not to exceed 20,000.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Murphy. Does anyone wish to speak in debate about this? Senator Mallard?
I was speaking in negation to this. What a lot of people need to understand is that we have a lot of organizations that request funding, and if we're going to be allowing a lot of orgs to ask more than, not a lot, there's very few that ask for an amount that exceeds 20K, and if we start giving out just more money, we have all those smaller orgs that aren't able to request money, or not able to request, but I mean, we had what it was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 70 something orgs that requested, and we still had to cut every single organization. We're trying to set it so that we don't have to cut orgs, but we also, I understand why people want to get rid of this, but you have to understand that we still have to find a way to support everyone.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in debate? Senator Enzi?
Yeah, I'm going to speak for this amendment. I think that if you are already giving an exemption to the maximum, then you need to be giving an exemption, not giving you can now go up to $20,000. That's another tier. That I think that you are creating another tier that is at the discretion of the treasurer now to be put in versus actually having a fourth tier.
Does anyone else wish to speak in debate? Senator Sinet?
I guess I'm going to, really formally say I'm speaking in affirmation of this. And I say this because if we're going to fully support our student organizations, there are some that might need to request over $20,000. Right now, we are capping our Finance Commission into what they can even do. Now, if they receive $20,000 or not will be up to them. Everyone is still going to be able to request what they need to request. It's going to be the exact same way it was last year. We're going to cut how we have to cut because we are in a deficit. We're in a shortfall. It is what it is. So I don't think we should be capping them. They're already capped. If they're making an exception, the full exception should be made, and we should be able to hear out what they actually need. Because even though I'm in a tier 1 organization, the president of it, we really don't need a whole lot of money. These huge organizations, though, they may need more than that $20,000, and they should be able to have a fair chance to fight for that.
Is there anyone that would wish to speak in negation of this? Chairperson Haynes.
Yeah. So, subject to correction, but the people that this 20,000 number did not come out of thin air. I believe it came from people from the Finance Commission who said that this is a number that they're comfortable being at. Additionally, creating no ceiling is kind of unsustainable for right now. Right now, for the foreseeable future, we're gonna face a shortfall. So we should plan that, and org should have that in mind when they're requesting for this money. Also keeping in mind that appropriations funding is not guaranteed. It's not you ask for this amount, you get this amount. So keeping that in mind, just keeping the requests reasonable is what I think the 20,000 represents. So to get rid of that means anybody can ask for anything, subject to the treasurer, and I don't believe it creates a fourth tier at all, really.
Does anyone else wish to speak that have not spoken yet? Senator Keller.
I'm not necessarily speaking in affirmation or against, but I think the whole point of having the exemption is that it leaves it up to the treasurer, and regardless, the entirety of the Finance Commission exists for the purpose of deciding and looking at every organization's request and deciding, are they going to get this much? Do we have this much to give them, or are we going to give them less? Which is what commonly happens anyway, is most orgs will put in you can request your ideal amount no matter what. But it goes to the Finance Commission, and that's what the rest of that checks and balances is for them to decide. But I think, if nothing else, you should at least be able to request what you believe your organization should be able to, or request what your organization should or need.
Okay, I'm going to make the decision to close the debate, and we'll go straight into the voting period. Advisor Fonseca.
Again, this is on the amendment to strike not to exceed 20,000, and the voting period is open. With 9 in favor, 5 against, and 4 abstentions, the motion fails.
Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in debate? Sarah Lewis.
This is a bit late, but regarding the amendment you made about the 7 and 8, or the section, or Act 7, you are making those 2 lines not to come into effect until next year because of the funding that we're making or giving the college Democrats. Is that, will the lines that you put in Act 7 prevent, or will the lines that are mentioned in Act 7 prevent future funding of, or like the funding towards the college Democrats, and will you want to give them funding in the future?
I guess I'll answer that. So for the future funding decisions, I'm not going to have a say in whatever the Finance Commission decides to do moving forward, but lines 7 and 8 would prohibit organizations from using funds for partisan purposes. So that's why I added Act 7 so that that the bill that we pass through the consent agenda would not be nullified by the passage of this bill if it does pass. But is there anyone else that would wish to speak in debate that has not spoken yet? Sarah Barnes?
I'd like to offer another amendment. Let me find the line, I apologize. Oh, I've scrolled past it. I'd like to, in Act 5, Chapter 5, Section 1, I'd like to, let's see how it reads. How does it read for you? I'm sorry. Act 5, Chapter 5, Section 1, Line 1. Or subsection 1.
Can you read the line number that's on the side?
272. Perfect. Yeah, I would like to revert back to the $6.75 per student per semester of a maximum of, well, yeah, there would be no of a maximum. I'd just like to revert to the original, and I would like to speak on my amendment.
Is there a second for that amendment? Seconded by Senator Enzi. Does anyone wish to speak on this amendment? Sarah Barnes?
Yeah, so we are obviously in a deficit here, and according to every single economic law, you never set a cap during a deficit. I understand that we get a little bit nervous with being in the deficit, and we get a little bit nervous, and we don't want to look into the future, but we're setting this into stone. We need to take into consideration that our university will grow likely in the next 5 years, and we really should take that into account. If we set a cap here today, we get to completely amend this again in the instance that we do have more students. That's all I've got.
Does anyone else wish to speak in debate for this amendment? I will speak in negation of this amendment. I think the $300,000 maximum is a necessary change that we need to have. It's a lot more clear than the dollar amount that the $6.75 per student that I personally feel. But that's just how I view it. And Advisor Fonseca, if you have something to add.
Senator Barnes, is that correct on the screen? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this amendment? Senator Mallard.
I'll also, pardon me. I'll also speak in negation of this. I agree with what was stated. Also, now I'm bad at math, and I believe if you do the math, if it's $675 per student, that's still less than $300,000. And if we say $675 per student per semester, then that would mean that we can't give even more money than what we could.
Does anyone wish to speak in affirmation of this amendment? Senator Enzi.
For one, the original association rules stated that that's a minimum. So that's one thing you're missing there. I don't know why it's not still on there. But I want to speak in affirmation that, yeah, the 675 brings us to a value of like 110,000, somewhere around there with our current population. But again, that's a minimum. This is saying this is the minimum amount that we are going to set forward per each student to go to these organizations that these students are involved in on campus. Again, yes, we can go back and revisit this in the future, but when you're working on bylaws, you should be thinking long-term, far in the future, and you don't want to be setting maximums when you want to set proportional limits. So even if you are going to set it as a maximum, you should be setting it as a maximum per student and a minimum per student instead of just setting a absolute max cap of 300.
Okay, so I will close debate and we will go straight into the voting period. Advisor Fonseca.
The voting period is open. We're missing one person? Okay. With 8 in favor, 8 against, and 2 abstentions, the motion fails.
Does anyone have any?
Hold on. You technically have to break the tie, so depending on what your vote is. So there is a tie, so how do you vote?
No.
So that is 8 in favor, 9 against, and 2 abstentions, the motion fails.
Does anyone have any amendments that they would like to add to this bill? Okay, I will close the debate period and move straight into the voting period. And to clarify, this is for the entirety of this bill. Advisor Fonseca.
The voting period is now open. We're missing one person. We have 8 in favor, 5 against, 5 abstentions, and motion fails.
Okay, so we will now go to section. I will now hand the chair over to Chairperson Haynes to preside over the bills that I have.
Act on request to approve SB-67-184, adjustment of the hardship funds and other associated funds act. Is the author here and wish to speak? You have the floor.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So the hardship fund bills went through a few amendments in legislative affairs where we modified a few items within the bill. One change that was made was that students that are not in good academic standing may request a waiver in their application to be for the application to be considered by the hardship fund committee. Additionally, for prohibited expenditures, clothing was struck out for those sections. And we had several conversations about the ADHD, Autism, or Learning Disability Testing Support Fund bill. So I have a few amendments that we would like to make to address some of the concerns that we had. We met with the psychology clinic a couple times. Well, one time to discuss contract details, and we still need to iron that out. And that'll likely be something safe for next session, but I will stand for any questions that anyone may have.
Are there any questions? Oh, Senator Eileen.
In section 5, subsection 2, it says that if a student isn't getting their testing done at the psychology clinic, then they would be unable to be reimbursed. Would there be any exceptions if the students, like in the process of testing, the psychology clinic deemed it necessary to refer them elsewhere? Would costs still be reimbursed in those instances, or would no exceptions be made?
Yeah, so in talking with, well, I think one thing that I want to do for Chapter 14 is just strike any amendments for Act 5, as we're still negotiating with Psychology Clinic on the final contract details, because we're not entirely sure what that contract will look like, and we're still working with them to seek further clarification on what that looks like moving forward. Our goal right now is, and I think Sarah Azar can speak a little bit more about that when we talk about in debate about our conversations with the Psychology Clinic, but as it is for the bill right now, I want to strike the line itself that says Act 5 and then Article 14, Chapter 14 to read. That way we can iron those out later, but with, yeah, if that kind of makes sense.
Are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, moving on to the debate period. Does anybody have any amendments or any discussion on this item? Vice President Fawn.
Okay, I move to strike the line itself, Act 5, amend Article 14, Chapter 14 to read. And just to be clear, that's striking the act itself, not all the language, original language.
Okay, great. Is there a second? Seeing multiple. Let's move on to the debate period. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on this motion? Vice President Fine.
Yeah, so as I said before, I want to strike that act, whatever that act was, I can't remember off the top of my head, but the reason why I wanted to strike that act out is because we still need time to iron out the details of the contract with the psychology clinic. So if we do eventually make that contract and we approve the bill with the amendments as it is right now, we might have to go back and change it later on anyway. So,
is there anyone else who wishes to speak in debate on this motion? All right, seeing none, let's move into the voting period.
The voting period is now open. We're missing one person. Oh, AJ, that's you. Oh, no, it's you. Okay. Okay. With 18 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstentions, the motion carries.
Good job. Now we're moving back on to the main motion. Does anybody have any debate? Vice President Fine.
okay, so I'm really happy with a lot of the amendments that were made, but I have one more thing that I would like to change. So before I make the formal amendment, one thing that I described in legislative affairs that occurred was they added language for students being able to request a waiver. And one interesting thing that we talked about in legislative affairs was what would that waiver process look like? The amendment that I will eventually make would be saying that instead of within the application, it'll be before the application. So with that, I'll make the formal, I move to amend Act 3, Chapter 3, Section 3, subsection 1A to read, students who do not meet the good academic standing requirement may fill out a waiver request before their application to be considered for the fund at the discretion of the Hardship Fund Tournament Select Committee.
Cool. Is there a second on that? Senator Mallard. Why did I turn that off? Does anybody have any discussion on this motion? All right. Seeing none, let's move into the voting period.
Voting period now open. We're missing one person. With 18 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstentions, the motion carries.
All right, back to the main motion again. Is there anyone else that has anything to say in debate about this item? Senator Izzard.
Probably more of a question for Dr. Fonseca. In Act 2, Chapter 2, Section 2, Line 2, sorry, where it talks about the Association Hardship Fund Board, like the oversight, would pending additional possible changes, would the ADHD, Autism, or Learning Disability Support Fund need to be removed from that, or that's it?
Dr. Fonseca.
I think based off of how the current new chapter that highlights that fund still exists as is, once the language is hashed out in whatever new version of that comes up, then there'll probably have to be an amendment to go back to this depending on whatever the outcome of that section might be. Oversight over it also implies policy directives, et cetera, but I think it depends on what ultimately comes out of the final version of whatever amendments happen in the new version of that scholarship.
Cool. Is there any more discussion on this item? All right, moving into the voting period.
The voting period is now open. With 17 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries.
Love that. Moving on to section 6.3, act on request to approve SB-67-185, formalization of the Freshman Leadership Council. Is the author here and wish to speak? The floor is yours.
Hello again. So the Legislative Affairs made one minor amendment to this bill, just adding the language where the Vice President, Supervising Vice President, shall retain speaking rights, but should not hold voting or procedural rights within the Freshman Leadership Council. I originally intended to add this, I just forgot to add that, so that was just an amendment that we made. There wasn't much other discussion about formalization of FLC. Most of the language within this bill came from the original executive order that was written to formalize the Freshman Leadership Council, but I'll stand for any questions if anyone has any.
Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, we'll move into debate period. Does anybody have any debate on this motion? Okay, also seeing none, let's move into the voting period.
The voting period is now open. We're missing 2 people. Oh, okay. With 16 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstentions, the motion carries.
All right, moving on to section 6.4, act on request to approve SB-67-186, creation of the Engagement and Outreach Committee. Is the author here and wish to speak? The floor is yours.
Legislative Affairs made a few minor amendments to this bill as well. It eliminated the 3 senators appointed by the Speaker of the Senate as representatives on this committee, as we felt like in Legislative Affairs in our discussion that was had that a student representative from each representative block of the Senate was sufficient enough to have at least student representative-wise on the committee besides all the directors and representatives from agencies and members of SOC, but I'll stand for any questions about this as well.
Okay, are there any questions? All right, seeing none, is there any debate on this motion at all? All right, also seeing none, let's move into the voting period.
The voting period is now open. We're missing, never mind. With 17 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries.
All right, moving on to section 6.5, act on request to approve SB-67-187, creation of the Sustainability Committee. Is the author here in which to speak?
For this bill, similar amendments were made as the other bills where the 3 senators appointed by the Speaker of the Senate was struck out. All the other language remained the same, but the reason why that was struck out was, again, they felt like the student representatives on that committee would be enough representation, I guess, and the 3 senators felt like kind of redundant for the committee, but I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, is there any debate on this item? Also seeing none, let's move into the voting period.
The voting period is now open. We're missing 1 person. With 18 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstention, the motion carries.
I now yield the floor back to Vice President Fawn.
Thank you. So we'll now move into 6.6, at-home request to approve AR-67-021 bike rack installation and commuter kindness, also known as BRIC. Is the author here and ready to speak? You have the floor.
Yeah, so just some minor wording was adjusted, as well as I installed the, I put in the whole portion where it is a violation to put a bike, and that is it is a violation of university policy to park bicycles in stairways, or stairways, or halls, or changes shrubs, trees, railing, signs, or lampposts, according to parking regulations, Article 9 and Section 4, as I previously just said, lampposts, just so that's a bit more proper. And then we added a little bit further down in line 40 that the university collaborate with the University Police Department, Sedgwick County Police Department, parking services, and local transportation agencies. The reasoning for this was there was some questions as to like why I had my statistics in there, and the reasoning that I do include that like where bike crashes and accidents happen is because a lot of these happen off campus, but even this semester we had someone who was hit by a bike on 17th. That's not on campus. That's not technically reported through the WSU Police Department. I know someone who bikes 10 miles to campus. And if they were to get hit 5 miles away, the university would never know. And so these statistics show that we're also reaching out to our commuter students and making sure that they do feel safe to bike to campus, as we are a commuter campus. I will stand for questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Sarah Mallard? Seeing none, thank you. We will now go into the debate period for this item. Does anyone wish to speak in debate? Chairperson Grahena?
I have an amendment to propose. In line 40, in the be it further resolved, can we change Sedgwick County Police Department to Wichita Police Department, since there is no Sedgwick County Police Department?
So just to clarify, you're changing the language from, can you say your amendment one more time?
Change the Sedgwick County Police Department to the Wichita Police Department, unless he was referring to just the Sedgwick County Sheriff, in which case that would be fine.
Okay, so that's a formal amendment, right? Okay. Is there a second to that amendment? Seconded by Sarah Murphy. Does anyone wish to speak on debate on this amendment? Sarah Mallard.
So I was not actually the one who wrote that. It was the chairperson of Student Affairs, I believe it is. Could we possibly change it to Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office?
Are you making a formal amendment or?
A friendly amendment.
I'll allow it if Chairperson Grahena is okay with it.
I would be open to the Wichita Police Department and the Sedgwick County Sheriff.
Okay. Does anyone else wish to speak in debate for this?
Point of order, do you need to have the second approve it?
That's a second. Sarah Murphy, are you okay with that change? Okay. Does anyone else wish to speak in debate for this amendment? Advisor Fonseca.
Okay, can you clarify the amendment again with whatever was considered friendly?
Yeah, so you would strike out Sedgwick County and put Wichita, and then so after Wichita Police Department, you would put Sedgwick County Sheriff.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak in debate? Seeing none, we'll go into the voting period. Advisor Fonseca.
On the amendment, the voting period is now open. With 18 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstentions, the motion carries.
Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in debate on this bill as a whole? Sarah Island?
A point of clarification on the amendment that was just passed. Would the word with be included in line 39? So the university to collaborate with the university police department after the bill is passed?
Advisor Fonseca, can you read the language as it is right now and clarify?
It would include it, yes. Yeah.
Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in debate? Seeing none, I'm closing the debate and moving into the voting period. Advisor Fonseca?
The voting period is now open. With 18 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstentions, the motion carries.
Okay, we will now move into section 7, consideration of new business. I will hand the chair back over to Chairperson Haynes for this.
Moving on to section 7, section 7.1, act on request to approve SB-67-189, emeritus status amendments. Is the author here and wish to speak? The floor is yours.
This bill will change the amount of times you can bestow emeritus status to members of the association from 3 a session to 5. I will answer any questions that anyone may have.
Are there any questions? Senator Hansen.
Is there like a specific reason you're wanting to do this?
Yeah, so speaking in conversations that I had with Speaker Owens throughout the year, we felt like 3 was too low of a number, especially with sessions where a lot of students are graduating. I know this year within our cabinet we have several members who are graduating along with several members of Senate leadership who are graduating, so 5 gives a little bit more of flexibility for those who wish to write bills to bestow emeritus status upon these individuals.
Are there any other questions? Okay, this bill is up for its first read. Yeah. Hold on, you want me to do the thing? Huh? Yeah. Oh yeah. And with that, I move to suspend the rules to make it this its first and second read. Yeah. Is there a second? Seeing several. I guess I'll speak on this motion. It's just a matter of timeliness on it. Frankly, session ends pretty much next week, so to get stuff like this through, yeah. Is there any other? Senator NC. Yeah, sure.
So you're saying that the, wherever you would refer this to, which committee would not meet before next week's meeting to be able to discuss this and bring it back at next week's meeting?
That is correct. Any other? Yes, Senator Mallard.
Just because we've never talked about this before, can we explain what that is for, or what emerit status is for those who do not know?
Yeah, I'm gonna deflect that one to Advisor Dr. Gabriel Fonseca. Yeah.
The emeritus status is basically, it gives a permanent recognition to a member of student government who has typically gone above and beyond their normal work. So it isn't necessarily presented to someone that does just their job, but it's recognized to someone who has contributed significantly to student government. It's only been awarded about 110 times in the student government's history since it was created back in the 80s. The ultimate resolve of it afterwards is that it grants permanent speaking rights to whoever that award is for, or whoever emeritus status is given to. Typically, it's awarded at the final meeting of the session and goes through that entire process from there. So that's what the emeritus status from student government means.
Cool. Is there any further debate on this item? I believe it is a simple majority. 2/3 majority to pass. So seeing that there is no debate, let's go into the voting period.
This is on the vote to suspend the rules. The voting period is now open. With 18 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions, the motion carries.
Right, so what that means is that we will take a final vote on this today. So I'll open up the debate period for final passage right now. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in debate? Senator Lewis.
Yeah, I'm speaking in favor of this. If there does retain speaking rights, and if people or former members of student government care to come back after they graduate, why not? Increasing the number, I don't think it can hurt.
Anyone else wish to speak in debate? All right, seeing none, let's move into the voting period.
Voting period now open. With 18 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstentions, the motion carries.
I yield the chair back over to Vice President Fawn.
Okay, before we head out, there's one more thing that I would like to do. I move to pull AR-67-20 diversity training out of DEI for its final read. This requires a simple majority vote. Is there a second? Seconded by Sarah Island. We will now go into, is there any debate on this? No, we'll move into the voting period for this.
This is on the vote to pull the bill. The voting period is now open. We're missing one person. Okay. With 17 in favor, 1 against, and 0 abstentions, the motion carries.
Okay, so this resolution is now on our agenda. Advisor Fonseca, can you pull up the resolution on the screen? While he is pulling this out, putting this up on the screen, does the author wish to speak on the amendments that were passed in committee? And I'll allow Chairperson Haynes to speak on it too, since Sarah Lewis wasn't there. All right, you both have the floor.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to be on this side of things, not sitting up there. So essentially what committee met and did was we decided to throw in the association's definition of what underrepresented was. And since we were debating so lovely about numbers last week, we decided to provide some numbers from the university as well on that. The 41% is a more encompassing number of students. That includes low-income students as well. So that's where that 41% number comes from. And then just to clean up the language, we decided to strike that last whereas section just to tie everything up. And I'll stand for any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now go into the debate period for this resolution. Does anyone wish to speak in debate? Sarah Island?
Yeah, I think that some of the amendments that were made in committee are definitely going to be good in order to kind of speak to the university in terms of showing them specific figures. I know that a lot of you all had concerns about not including graduate students or not having a clear picture of how many students fit into the language that was inserted in line 1. And so I think that I would certainly recommend this legislation to pass just because I think it's a great initiative to kind of increase campus initiatives and awareness of attitudes towards ethnic and other minorities on campus.
Does anyone else wish to speak in the debate period? Senator Lewis?
With current national efforts to remove like diversity initiatives from everywhere, universities, businesses, I think this bill is, or resolution is, would be quite helpful.
Does anyone wish to speak in negation of this bill? Seeing none, I'm going to close the debate period and go straight into the voting period. Advisor Fonseca?
The voting period is now open. We're missing 2. Yep, with 16 in favor, 1 against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries.
Sarah Mallard, do you have something?
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there a way we can do a recount on the appropriations resolution?
Advisor Fonseca, what was the count on that
Or like a
bill?
revote or something?
Advisor Fonseca, can you review the policy on that process? Chairperson Haynes, do you have something?
Yeah, point of inquiry. I believe that means you have somebody on the prevailing side of the vote, so a no or an abstention would have to motion for the recall, I believe, or somebody that voted no. So I believe it was 855. One of the people who voted no, one of the 5 of y'all who voted no would have to do that.
So Senator Haynes is not incorrect. It depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to force a recount or if you're trying to pick up the bill again and continue to work on it. Those are 2 different types of motions. So Senator Haynes' point was to do the recount requires someone on the prevailing side to call for the question again. If you're trying to go back to the bill to do something different to it, then there's a separate motion that you have to make for that. So it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Do you know what you're trying to accomplish?
Well, it'd be the recount, revote thing. Yeah.
So are you asking for a recount officially, or? Oh, okay. Does anyone have any motions or anything they would like to do at this period? Chairperson Haynes, you have something?
Point of inquiry, it goes for no's and abstentions, correct?
Correct.
Or, okay.
It's anyone on the prevailing side.
Cool.
Or, yeah, on the prevailing side. So your motion would be your call for a division of the House, which becomes a vote count, like a voice vote, no longer a machine vote. So you'd have to make that motion yourself. And it is not, from what we're reading, it's not debatable. It's not, doesn't have to be seconded. It's just a right of a senator to do. So you need to make that motion to, the motion would be to call for a division of the House, Senator Mallard. If that's what you want to do, you need to say that. Oh.
Last call. Anyone wish to make any motion? Okay. If not,
I think the other part, because I know we haven't actually ever done it before, but if there's a person who also wants to go back to the entire bill itself, there is a different motion to make, and that one is a move to reconsider our action relative to, and you have to make the bill that you want to go back to. It does have to be seconded, and it is debatable, and does require a majority to pass.
saying that, does anyone wish to make any motion?
For the, pulling up, the actual bill again, does that have to be somebody that voted no, on the prevailing side, or just anybody can do that?
According to Roberts, it does not.
Any further questions?
I believe it is motion to recount, or
Okay, before we
Can
start
you
going into
say-
any more questions, please raise your hand before you ask them so I can call on you so we can keep track of that a little more easy. Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask? Senator Mallard.
can you say it again so I can type it out so I can motion properly?
Advisor Fonseca, can you state that again?
The motion would be you move to reconsider an action relative to, and then you have to state the bill name. Again, it does have to be seconded and it is debatable.
Does anyone have any motions or final thoughts? Senator Mallard.
I motion to move to reconsider an action relative to SB 67-182 amendments to the association funding regulations.
Do we have a second for that motion? Senator Hansen. Okay, we'll now go into the debate period for this motion to reconsider. Does anyone wish to speak in debate? Senator Sinet.
I really have a point of inquiry. Will you please go back through the numbers for a majority vote and a 2/3 vote? Just because I'm having a sense that even if we do repool this, so many of us have to abstain that it might not be necessary.
Advisor Fonseca, can you check those numbers?
Can you repeat what you're?
I just want a number for 2/3 vote and a majority vote.
A simple majority is 10 and a 2/3 is 12.
Okay, we will now go. Does anyone else wish to speak in the debate period for this motion? Senator Mallard.
So the first thing I want to say is that there was some information that was given a bit ago that was false. It was stated that there was a minimum in regards to one of the amendments in Act 5, Chapter 5, Section 1, annually the treasurer of the association shall earmark. It was stated that there was a minimum. That is not true. If you go back to the rules and regulations that we have in our teams, it does not state that. Also, in regards to abstentions, you abstain if you believe that you will vote biasly. If you believe that you are voting not for your organization, but for the whole. The only reason why I brought it up in the past is because we are talking, like when it was in regards to the 20K, there are organizations that do request a lot of money, and there was some stuff that was said, but if you believe that you can vote without violating the bias policy and you're not doing it for your own org, then you can vote yes or no, but I just wanted to bring that up. Also, this is really important, and there are a lot of orgs that could benefit from certain line changes and whatnot. So, yeah.
Does anyone else wish to speak in debate for this? I guess I'll speak in debate. I will speak in affirmation of reconsidering. I think this bill can do a lot of good for our organizations. I know we disagree on the $20,000 amount, but I don't think that's worth failing the bill over because a lot of the language that we added about clothing will allow more RSOs to purchase clothing if it has a purpose, or for individual organizational funding and make it so much easier for organizations to go through this process. But those are just my thoughts. If anyone else would like to speak on this, feel free to do so. Does anyone else like to speak on this motion to reconsider? Seeing none, we will go into the voting period. Advisor Fonseca.
This is on the motion to reconsider SB-67-182, and the motion or the voting period is open. With 11 in favor, 6 against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries.
Okay, so we will now go into the debate period for that bill that we brought back. Would anyone like to speak in the debate period for that or offer any amendments? Senator Enzi.
I'll speak about Senator Mallard's rebuttal to the minimum. Earmarking does mean that that's a minimum. The president still has the authority to mark whatever amount they would like for appropriations.
Does anyone else wish to speak during the debate period on this bill? Sarah Island.
Yeah, I'll be speaking in affirmation of this bill. I think I'll be echoing some of Senator Mallard's sentiments, but I think that it would be irresponsible of us to not put forth this legislation that could make much easier the organizational funding and individual funding processes. I know there's been some points of contention about certain numbers, but I think the Finance Commission did their due diligence in putting forth this number and putting forth specific pieces of information that would help us make an informed decision for the entire student population, and I think it would be in our best interest to pass this legislation this evening.
Does anyone else wish to speak in the debate? Sarah Barnes?
Point of inquiry, are we allowed to make amendments on the bill during this time?
Yes, the bill is fully back on the floor.
Does anyone else wish to speak in debate? Chairperson Haynes?
Yes, I'll be speaking in affirmation of this. Pretty much echoing the sentiments of everybody. This bill has a great quantity to do a lot of good. I believe some of the numbers that were put in place are a good safeguard, especially since we're about to hit an enrollment cliff. For those who don't know, for the next 4 years, higher education enrollment will decline about 15%. So keeping that in mind, I think those numbers are a good safeguard for the association itself. So yeah, this can do a lot of good for the students, and I think it's our responsibility to do that good and pass this.
Are there any other senators that have not spoken yet that would like to speak in the debate period? Okay, we'll go back to Senator Barnes.
I'd like to amend Chapter 5, Section 1, Line 1. I'd like it to I'd like it to read, annually the treasurer of the association shall mark a minimum of $6.75 per student per semester.
Advisor Fonseca, can you pull that up and put it on the screen? Is there a second to that amendment? Seconded by Senator Enzi. Is there anyone that would like to speak in debate about this motion? Sarah Barnes?
Yes, I think that coming into a cliff, a shortfall, and if we're really going into a situation where we're going to have lower enrollment, I think that setting a maximum is going to just continue to allow us to cut and cut and cut, and it's going to get to a point where student groups aren't going to have any money left. When you're in a recession, you need to spend as much money as you can in order to keep things flowing. You have to. In this shortfall, you have to spend. You need to allow it to happen. And by setting a maximum, you're going to stop the spending ultimately.
Does anyone else like to speak in the debate for this motion? Senator Henley?
I also want to keep in mind where this money would be coming from. It wouldn't be that we just have all this money if we don't have students coming in. So if we don't have the money to do this minimum, what does that really mean if we pass this? And then we're looking at 4 years of a deficit.
So to clarify, if we pass a minimum, the student body president, when they make their budget, they have to have that amount regardless of what the amount allocated in student fees is. So let's say it's that amount over there. Up there for the $6.75 per student at minimum, the student body president has to allocate that much out of their budget every year. But yeah, does anyone else like to speak in debate? We'll go to Sarah Lewis.
I have to speak in negation of this amendment. In the next few years, we are not going to have a problem hitting a maximum amount of funding. We won't be able to get that much funding. But if we put a minimum on it, if we put a floor on it, we might not have that much money. It's a bit scary, but we have to take this floor out so that we can keep going as a university.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in debate? We'll go to Senator Sinette.
I'm going to speak in affirmation of this. Now, I don't disagree with us having a maximum, or the maximum that's present, but the minimum protects our student organizations. It's not going to hurt them. We have to realize that we are a student organization. We are here for our students. So I think this is just ensuring a safeguard. It's not going to be limiting or hurting anyone. And yes, we are hitting a deficit, and it's scary. I get it. But we should not be taking that on the students that pay to be here.
Are there any other senators that would like to speak in debate? Sarah Mallard.
I will speak in affirmation of this one. What this does is if we keep it at 17,000 students, and if it is per semester, then we'll allocate 229,000, which is still below 300,000, and that still allows us to add more. And as was just previously stated, if they want to, and even if there are less students, yeah, that number goes down, but we're still adding an amount that students will have and make sure that they have, and we're not going, let's say we want to do 200,000, but now that per minimum is like $6. I don't know, but I do approve of this.
Does anyone else wish to speak in debate? Sarah B.
I will also be speaking in affirmation. I understand there's concerns about putting a floor or a minimum because what if we lose students? What if we're at a deficit? But if it's a per student floor, then even if we lose students, then our expected cost will also go down. So I don't think we need to be concerned about what will happen if it's at a per student rate.
Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in debate? Seeing none, I'm closing the debate period. We will now go to the voting period. Advisor Fonseca.
So this is for the amendment. The voting period is now open. With 13 in favor, 2 against, and 3 abstentions, the motion carries.
Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in debate for the entirety of the bill? Senator Izzard?
I guess this is a point of inquiry. So for since we re-pulled the bill the bill back into session or whatsoever and for reading, do all the previous amendments that were made before it failed, were they completely dropped off? So the ones that Vice President Fawn made regarding the political partisanship or whatsoever, having that enacted later, do those all fall off, or will they have to be re-motioned to be amended?
Advisor Fonseca.
No, they will stay because they were part of the most recent version of the bill that ultimately failed, so all of those votes will remain intact.
Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in debate? Senator Enzi.
All right, I move to amend the bill and revert to the original lines for 327 to 334, which is these sections. Act 5, Chapter 5, Section 3, Subpoint 8, bullet A, B, and C. Revert those to what they were before.
Do we have a second for this motion? Seconded by Senator Keller. Does anyone wish to speak in debate for this motion? Senator Mallard, go ahead.
I'm speaking in negation. We have clearly failed the 20K multiple times, and it is my personal opinion that this is just a move to try and again get rid of the 20K thing. I don't know how many times we've had to debate this and how many hours we have put forward just to keep failing this. I will be voting no.
Does anyone else wish to speak in the debate period? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the debate. Sarah Enzi, do you have something?
I'm going to once again point out there are many organizations that request over that amount for each of their tiers. And also request over the 20,000 when they have exceptions, and that many of these organizations do a lot with that funding. And again, the funding is not. This is not saying that they will get 20,000 or that they will get 50,000. This is saying that they can request what they are needing for their organization to continue in what they currently do. And you can say all you want about, oh, that doesn't mean it's a cap. We've heard from several different people on the Finance Commission, not the treasurer herself, but that they will not give over the amount that is requested officially, even if I come in and say that X organization requires, let's say, $30,000, but my request was $20,000. They're not going to give over that amount. And again, you're putting maximums in place where you're going to, in the future, need to revisit those and again have this debate over and over again if you currently put a max on it right now.
Are there any other senators that wish to speak in the debate? Senator Hansen?
So sorry. So I guess I'm going to be speaking in negation of this amendment, only because, like you did mention, they did say, and some of the people in student fees did say, that they would, that they will not exceed above, the requested amount. They also said that most of them would not feel comfortable going above that $5,000 and $10,000. So to me, raising it again is kind of just redundant because they already said they're not going above that 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. So.
Are there any other senators that wish to speak in the debate? Senator Ping?
I would just like to remind the body, the treasurer herself represents Finance Commission. Whatever the Finance Commissioners have said themselves do not represent the whole commission as itself. The treasurer herself represents. So whatever you have heard from individual commissioners herself does not represent the whole commission.
Are there any other senators that wish to speak in debate? Senator Murphy?
I believe I have a point of inquiry. Does this amendment affect the line, let's say, 334, the specific section of not to exceed 20,000? Is that also included in that, or is that still going to be there no matter what?
Advisor Fonseca?
It will still be there no matter what, unless someone makes an amendment again to it.
Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in debate? Senator Enzi?
Point of inquiry, I did say that all of those sections revert to their original reading, and it's the original reading of that section did not have the not to exceed $20,000.
I'm sorry, did you also mention 333 line?
Line 334, but yes.
I did not hear that.
Sorry.
What was can you say that again?
To strike the not to exceed $20,000 because I said to revert Section 8 subpoint A, B, and C to their original reading, and I is included in subsection C.
I apologize, I didn't hear that. You'll need to make sure Keller's okay with that.
I think, Advisor Fonseca, I think that was the original motion that was made, so.
Okay. I think just for the record, can we just maybe get that seconded again to make sure that that was the original intent as well?
Senator Keller, are you okay with that?
Okay.
Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in debate on this motion? Seeing none, I will close the debate period and we'll now go to the voting period. Advisor Fonseca?
On the amendment on the screen, the voting period is now open. With 8 in favor, 8 against, and 2 abstentions, since there is a tie, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
With 9 in favor, 8 against, 2 abstentions, the motion fails.
Are there any other senators that wish to speak in debate? Seeing none, I'll close the debate period. We'll go straight to the voting period for the entirety of this bill. Advisor Fonseca?
The voting period is now open for the entirety of the bill. We're missing one. We have Okay, we're going to do that again. The voting period for the entire bill is now open. With 11 in favor, 5 against, 2 abstentions, the motion carries.
Okay, with that, we will now move into Section 8, adjournment. The Student Government Association Senate will stand in adjournment until Wednesday, April 23rd at 6:30 p.m. 6:30 p.m.
Point of
Sir,
order. Did you vote yes or no on your tie break?
I voted yes, but it did not have the simple majority.
It was recorded as no on the. Oh, did I miss? Okay.
Okay, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:36 p.m.